So phase one, we all have made some outbound calls. We're at a situation where we've gotten past the uncomfortableness of just dialing and attacking the phone, which in all reality is as long as you're keeping those muscles on the dial and doing the actual muscle of the job, which is dialing your 100 calls a day, you will end up with deals. Now I'm just trying to focus on making sure that you get more than enough deals to then go past the survival mode of wholesaling to get into where you're thriving, making some good income, and it makes sense for you to do this full time if you're leaving a position or just, getting past the survival mode. It took me 6 to 8 months on my own just because I started out with literally nothing in my bank account when I left the wholesale team that I was working at more of a corporate position. And it kind of came out of nowhere. I came back from being on a honeymoon. I was trying to think, was it when I got engaged or honeymoon? Honeymoon, and I had made 100,000 a month for this company the past 3 months. So I thought I was sitting in a good position to start making some good money with them and have them realize that they needed a star player to stay on the team and help them through their fall season of finding off-market deals. Well, got back from the honeymoon, they fired me that day, and I was out the door and had to figure things out. So, um, no one wants to be in that position. No one wants to have a timeline to get a return so that way they can pay their bills. But that was the reality. And it took picking up the phones and crushing other wholesalers and or sellers. So right now we're focusing on the introduction, and that is like a huge thing because if you think about it, you dial 100 phone numbers a day. Let's say 40 of them pick up, worst case scenario. And then you're at a situation where you get a whole bunch of people that barely will listen to you for 5 seconds. So that's phase one of like, how can we get people to slow down and give you the time of day, whether they're cooking, making dinner, they're at their lunch at work, or just everything else that happens in life. Those things are some of the worst objections that hurt us because they're life and they happen. And so we have to be good enough to either get a quick appointment scheduled to call them back immediately when they're free and have them explain to you, what that looks like and when and why, which is to help purchase their house, or get them in the moment and be, um, I like to say the word entertaining enough to keep them there and have them take a moment out of their day and think about what you have to say. And that's huge. That ability to do that will double your sales. Like it doesn't matter how bad of a closer you are, if you're able to like get a conversation going with a couple people once a day, those add up into longer relationships. And then the average wholesale deal, 3 to 6 months out when it closes, will turn into a repeatable system for you. So then oh, those two pulses that I get a day when I'm nurturing them, those eventually turn over and all this is more predictable because if we can get your return predictable, you get more comfortable and now the job isn't as stressful and you're in a situation where you can kind of start taking your money and investing it and not hoarding it because you're nervous about next month. So I get it. I live it. So number one thing I want to talk about today, and I'm not saying it solely because I used to sell cars. I just think that we all can picture the car lot and we can all kind of relate to it a little bit better than the direct job, what we're doing right now, which is wholesaling. So a lot of my metaphors and examples are going to come from that. Um, so, picture this. You just started at Jim Cogdill Dodge down on Kingston Pike, and you're the new salesman, and you're standing out there, and someone pulls up their old rust bucket Ram, and they park, and they're about to get out. What are they thinking? They're probably thinking, "Oh gosh, here comes this new buck coming up to ask me if I want to buy a car." They're a street vulture, parking lot vulture. All they want to do is make money. the old used car salesman attitude. They have these perceptions of who you are and what you believe and your morals and ethics. And that goes for our sellers as well when we're calling them. And so the number one thing we're trying to get past is whatever that stereotypical person is that they think we are. So they think we're scammers, number one, because they don't actually think we'll buy anything. Like scammers in the sense of like, oh, you're just trying to get my social security number to like run it and steal my bank accounts. When in reality, it's like, no, we're just literally trying to buy rental houses or do flips. That's all it is. Like, and so you have kind of that persona of people that just see you as a scammer trying to get social security numbers overseas, and that's what you are. I would say other people just think you're going to give lowball offers. Now, that's a whole other conversation we can get into. We don't give low offers, we give accurate offers. Everyone on the market is within 10 grand of what you and I are probably going to be offering these people. Now, there are moments where people's perception of a good number is much lower than what we need it for, which makes us be able to make even more money. But even that, to their perception, is not a low offer. So we're never going in making low offers. We're making the offers that make sense for our investors. And really, we are a necessity to the market because I sit down with people with millions of dollars. I'm talking millions of dollars who don't know how to find a deal. And frankly, they are still millionaires and they don't want to put time in their day to make these calls, which then has us be born as the right people. And if you think about it, the realtors in the world aren't looking for these deals because they don't know how to capitalize on them. 6%, 3% on a $40,000 house is nothing. So it's like, why would they go hunt down those people all day? There's no sense of it. So our revenue that we make on a deal is actually baked into what the market value of the home is worth because if we didn't exist, they wouldn't get it done. We actually provide a high value service. So moving forward, phase two, the second avatar that people think we are is we're lowball offer type people that will waste their time. Also not true. And then do you guys have any other opinions on what people perceive you as if you cold call them? I mean, maybe there's not another type, but I'd be curious on what you guys think of if someone cold called you about your house or whatever.
I don't know. It's just a matter of, um, you know, I, I think we have to pique people's curiosity in what we're about because otherwise it's an automatic no. When I've received a few of them simply because I didn't change up what I was saying and how I was saying to get their attention.
Hmm. I think that people don't understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so they get up on guard sometimes, just simply not understanding, like you're saying. Like, well, how can someone just keep buying houses? I mean, I only bought one, the one I live in, coming from the seller's perspective. And so I would say that's our third, like, overall objection. So those are the three things, like getting over the scammer, getting over how we do things, so that way they understand like our intentions. And then the first one, which was just simply um, scammer, lowball offer, and just not understanding what we do. Those are the top three most generic things that people are going to have wrong with you, and they're not probably going to bring it up because most people don't run towards confrontation, they run away, which is why they hang up. So when you think about it, phase one is making sure people don't hang up. Well, what do people hang up from? Confrontation. So we're not trying to create confrontation right off the bat, no matter what. We're trying to ease them into understanding why we do what we do. Because whether they think we're a scammer, well, we can neutralize that by having them understand what we do. If they think we give lowball offers, they can understand what we do. If they think that they just don't understand how we can buy that many houses a year, we need to tell them how and what we do. And I'll tell you from the perspective of the scammer, it's like, hey, well, like actually we use an attorney in town. We would recommend you to get an attorney as well if you'd like. They're called title companies. We close there. We bring a briefcase of cash, or we bring a check, or we wire it in, depending. And we would never want you to feel like you're getting pressured down at the courthouse with us forcing an ink pen on your hand and doing all that. We act with professionalism and make sure people feel comfortable the entire time. And we actually pay for those services for you to have the documentation be correct at closing. Like we'll pay for closing costs, AKA. So that's someone that just maybe thinks that we're a scammer or doesn't understand what we're doing. The lowball offer, the simple answer to that is like, I can't lowball you right now, buddy. I wish I could, but in this market, people just don't give away their houses, and I'm never going to convince you otherwise. Like, I'm never going to call up Wyatt and be like, hey, bro, have you ever thought about selling your house? And then he goes, yeah, but I don't want no lowball offers. And then I go, that's all I give. I'm sorry, man. Have a good day. Like we're not in the industry again, like I've explained, our revenue that we make as a team is baked into the true value of the home if it's distressed or someone has a distressed uh, uh the home is either distressed or they have a distressed situation in their life. So personally, they need to get out quick, or they have a house that's never going to sell because it's just so poorly kept, whether mold, leaking, old tenants in there just bashing everything together, vacant, anything you could think of. And there's plenty of those houses in the state of Tennessee. And the number one reason I got into wholesaling was when I looked at real estate and I said, there's like 5,000 real estate agents in Knoxville, and they all go for the really rich Farragut, Hardin Valley houses that are worth 800,000 and list those and make a whole bunch of money. But the inventory on those are next to nothing compared to the amount of houses that need a repair job and a renovation to then be a good home for a family or a tenant, depending. So that's just a side note of like when you're getting doubtful on yourself, understand there's more houses out there in East Tennessee that need help and repair than there are $1 million houses that a realtor could list and make an honest living at. Just to kind of go back into that phase one of the intro, you know, people's guards are up. Why is your guard up? There's tons of reasons. And at the car lot, it's because they have this instinctive belief that you're going to hurt them and you're going to make sure that they have a bad environment and it's going to be painful. Well, same situation with us when it comes to just the average buyer. I mean, people hear stories of like, well, we went under contract and then 2 months later they bailed on us because they did an inspection and they didn't like what they saw. Their offer kept going lower and lower. We've wasted too much time. The realtor didn't even help us. And they might not say these things, but these are things to bring up to just have beginning conversations. What I'm trying to tell you guys is these people are going to have a lot of objections they're not going to say. They're just going to say, no, thanks. I'm good. Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye. And then hang up. That's the reality. Like your job and the way you get wealthy is to make sure that you can extract that information from people and get them to understand you could help them because I mean, that is how real estate gets done. It's people to people. So I want to go over some good examples of, you know, what those introductions look like. And I'll say this, what you initially say isn't as important as the tonality, your tone. So tone of voice is everything. Like if you sound like a telemarketer, no matter how good of information you're going to give, that's what they're going to hear. And so if you can come in and pick up the phone and talk to them like you're talking to your best friend, that you're saying, hey, what's up? You want to get on Xbox and play in Fortnite? Or, whatever else you're doing in your life. That's how I talk to everyone I work with. And people become so attached to me so quickly because they feel like they've known me forever and they trust me. And then as a sales guy, have the ethical dilemma to make sure that I go through with the service or product that I promised them. And then when I do that, now I help more people, I make more money, my value goes up. and my name grows and grows and grows. So it has a double impact on your revenue. Um, I want to go back to the example though, of the car lot when it comes to like first pulling up, you can either picture yourself as the customer or the car sales guy. And the customer gets out of the car, and what are they gonna say after the salesman goes, "Hey, how you guys doing? What brings you in?" And then the customer goes, just looking around, appreciate it. And then they try to like dip as soon as possible. Sometimes they don't even roll down their window. There's 1,000 things that they're going to do to keep away from interacting with you. And so some of the icebreakers I came up with when I was working the car lot was, "Hey guys, can I help you find a terrible deal today? I'd love to screw you guys over if I could." And then people are like, "Wait, what?" Like, what did you just say? And I was like, "No, I'm just kidding." Like, I just know that, and this is that second phase I was telling you about with tonality. Hey, no, I'm just kidding, guys. Like, the reality is like so many people come into this car lot and think like I can just magically have them drive away in a car that is a monthly payment that like they hate. And the reality is like I I'm not a genie. I can't do that, but you are here for a car, and my job is to sell cars, and I'd love to be able to help you. What were you guys looking for? And all of a sudden, now we're at a human conversation, like 10 seconds into meeting them, because we got past the bullshit and we're like, we're doing something, we're doing a deal. And they might still be in the shopping mindset, but at least they like, this guy's different. He's giving me a different pulse. And like, I'm intrigued. So it's for me, like my biggest sales point right when you start, especially, is don't try to figure out the perfect line. Bring in your tonality and bring in the slowing down of pace. Like, hey, I just wanted to think about this one real quick with you. Like, would you be against me making an offer on your house if we did meet up? Like, is that something that gets you uncomfortable? Or maybe it makes sense for you to do in the next couple of days. Like all those tones, the speed of the conversation, I'm slowing down, speeding up to make them feel comfortable when I'm asking questions. And when I slow down with pace, they slow down when they think. So if I'm like, "Hey, I appreciate it. Just before you go, I was thinking, you know, have you thought about selling in the past 6 months?" And that brings like a come to Jesus moment of like, oh, like this guy's really asking me. Like, when you get pulled aside from your dad, and he's like, "Hey, I just wanted to ask you a quick question real quick." And all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, like this is important." Like you lean into here. And so those little tricks get people to slow down their day and not just go, "No, pound, phone gets clicked up." So if you get nothing else from this conversation, tonality and speed of conversation have a lot to do with getting people to be comfortable with you. Does everyone understand that? Um, and then it's like really like I'm just asking open-ended questions. Like again, car lot tactics, like welcome in, what's been the most fun thing about shopping for a car? And then like we're not talking about whether they're shopping or not because I just label it and it's okay. We're shopping, it's fine. Like you'll become a buyer by the end of the day. I just don't want to get shooed away. I'm trying to open up and hear what they have to say. I'm becoming a professional interviewer. Now that's our phase two. I'm just trying to set us up for an alley-oop for that to be successful. So really stage one is just getting them to think open-minded and having them willing to stay on the phone. Um, I wrote down a quick note. Tonality is everything. If you can't feel human and as close to them as their best friend, you'll never switch them over thinking that you're just a telemarketer. Telemarketers don't get deals. They don't. So the more you muscle through and just go, "Hey, this is Dan from Bell Investor Group. I'm really interested in buying your house. Have you thought about selling in the last 6 months?" Click. And do it again like 6 different times. It's like, "Hey, this is Dan. I just wanted to actually reach out to you. I was thinking about, I'm really interested in purchasing a house. I'm buying my first rental, and I thought maybe you were looking at selling. Have you thought about that?" All of a sudden, it's like that other person will sit back and listen. And maybe one out of the four that normally hangs up stays engaged. And that's all we're trying to do. And I think Carl had seen that today when he texted somebody after he got off the phone and he challenged them to say, like, are you sure? Like, what did you say, Carl? What did you text?
Well, basically, it's a board landlord that I was texting back and forth, and he wanted me to send an offer, and I'm like, I can't send you an offer uh until I've seen the house. And what it boiled down to is, he wanted to pretend like he's getting off the phone. So I typed back, so you aren't ready to sell your house, apparently. And he was like, well, what's your offer? And I'm like, well, I really need to see the place before I can give you an offer. When can we set up a time to go ahead and get that done? And he's like, I have a tenant. And I said, okay. I said, I understand. So I just went ahead and let it go. But, you know, basically what worked for me was I was chasing, and I got tired of chasing, and I stopped chasing, and I'm like, well, you don't want to sell your house apparently.
Yeah.
And then grabbed him back and then re-engaged him.
And that's, I would say that's not like a direct correlation to what I'm teaching, just to admit it to the group, but I will say it was an impactful statement enough to make people think. So if you're trying to think of stage one is to keep people engaged and think. And so anything that you guys believe can do that, like a text challenging someone to an opportunity, is more than perfect. And so you don't have to overthink like, oh, was that right or that was wrong? It's like as long as it engages them and makes them think that was what you should have done. And you do that 100 times a day. Now you got yourself some a recipe for some deals. So, and obviously he's got them on the hook. And I think that that's something that new people in any type of sales environment get really back and forth in their brain of like, okay, like, what should I say? When should I say it? And like, how should it be structured? Well, there is some truth to that. That's why we gave you 3 phases, you know. But in phase one is trying to keep people on the phone for longer than 5 seconds. And the number one goal to do that, the way to do that is to get people engaged and get them to think. And if we can challenge them to think, then that's going to make stage one go green light. Now we go to stage two. And really, you look at it like a loading bar of all 3 bars. And once you get through all 3 bars, it becomes an appointment and it's like ka-ching. And so you're just trying to not over analyze what you're doing. You're just trying to make sure the type of play you call in the football game was the right one for a fourth down play. This is a first down play. You understand? Um, so really, I wanted to go over our kind of the one I wrote for the team, and it gives you a kind of an opportunity to use some tonality because there's a lot of commas and periods in it. And the real gold is in the second part of it because you wait for them to say something back, and now you're engaged and loaded up to shoot them back with a good statement. Because really, the first thing you say doesn't matter, which is why I gave you the example at the car lot where I'm like, hey, I'd love to screw you over. You guys want to get an $800 payment on some silly Volkswagen? Because I'd love to help you. And then they go like, what? No, we're just looking, blah, blah, appreciate it. Oh, well, hey, what were you looking for? I know we can't really sell you a car that you're not going to like at a payment you're going to hate, but I'd love to help you in a car that you do like and a monthly payment that does make sense. What's your goal right now? Like whatever. And now I slowed down tonality and had them thinking because they weren't ready for it. And now we're having a conversation like Carl did with the person that's like, it sounds like you might not be ready to sell, but I'm here. So my intro would be, hey, it's Dan. I'm just calling homeowners this afternoon because I'm trying to grow my rental portfolio. Would it be crazy for me to ask you if you're interested in selling today? And then they're like, oh no, blah, blah. And it's like, I understand I'm a bit new to cold calling, know that you might be the person I can't help with their house, but what's the number one reason why you've thought about selling in the last few months? And I just assumed the sale because it's another way to get people engaged. And it's just a tool for me to have them think because they weren't ready for the question. And so I'll copy and paste that in the chat. But the more you can slow down and bring, we call it the Obama whether you like him or not. His public speaking skills are um, impeccable. So I just put it in the chat here. You guys can copy and paste it and save it for yourself. Um, he has the ability to slow down and really label what he's trying to do to create impact. And then people get behind you when you do that. So whenever you want someone to listen to what you say, you talk like this. Because think of it this way: you're in third grade and you're about to learn multiplication for the first time, and you've only done addition and subtraction. And you're getting taught by the teacher. One teacher goes, yeah, okay, so these are our times tables, this is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. Never change tonality. And at the end of the lesson, they give out a piece of paper and they go, okay, start doing it. And then you have a second teacher that goes in and goes, hey, so this is the multiplication. But what I really need you guys to understand is, and then boom, the lesson plan kind of starts with a 5 minute conversation where, hey, just so you guys know, on the test, this is important, and then like labels what's going to be on the test. That class is going to learn more. And you got to think of it like a classroom, because there's 100 people in a classroom and we're going to call on each of them, and how many of them are going to understand the multiplication. And if we can give better tonality towards the whole group to know when things are important when I'm on the phone, when it comes to like my first intro and my second statement, and can bring importance to that, more people will listen, and then more people will learn, and then they'll be intrigued and they'll be engaged. So that's kind of me wrapping it up. That's kind of how a sales training call will go. I'd like to do some practicing on Thursday just to hear. So y'all be ready for some engagement. I will call on each of you so we can get some examples going, because the best way to do it is in front of the team that knows what you're looking for. And yeah, it's really uncomfortable and cringy, but you have to get past that if you want to make money. And that's why most people fail. Most people fail because they go to bed and they say they'll do it tomorrow, or they'll say, no, I'm too cool for that. I don't need to do that. I'll figure it out without it. But in all reality, why would you like like take away opportunity from yourself when you're given an environment to learn that? And the quicker you learn all this stuff, the more likely you'll survive and then get to the point where you're able to invest. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's on you guys to do the calls. Those that don't want to do it every day probably won't get deals. And I'm not a guy that's going to be like here saying like everything's sunshine and rainbows, because it takes high talent people to have consistent results. But it only takes the ability to learn that daily to get to that high level person.